This aircraft is considered the best Allied light bomber of World War II, but because of delays in its development, arrived very late in the war. It was a successful design and served on long after the war, flying missions in the conflict in Korea and Vietnam as well, becoming the only US bomber participating in 3 wars. So let's see how this interesting bomber was developed and what delays led to its late introduction. The origins of this bomber lead us back to the mid-1930s, when its predecessor was designed. In 1937, the US Army Air Corps issued specifications for a new attack aircraft. The specifications asked for a bomber which would need to be able to carry a payload of 1,200 pounds to a range of 1,200 miles and have a maximum speed above 200 miles an hour. The team at Douglas developed an aircraft for the specifications. This was the Model 7B. It was competing against the North American NA-40, the Stearman X-100, the Martin 139, and the Bell Model 9. The first prototype of the Douglas Model 7B made its maiden flight in October 1938. Though the prototype crashed in January 1939, it caught the attention of the French Air Force and impressed the US Army Air Corps as well. During 1939, the French put in an order for 170 units, and in June the Army Air Corps ordered it in production as well as the A-20 Havoc. Even before the A-20 entered service, work started on an upgraded version at the end of 1940. Major General Frank Carroll listed problems with the A-20 which in his view needed to be addressed in a new bomber. The faults he listed were: the fuselage was too narrow, limiting the movement of the crew. It didn't have enough defensive armament. The airframe was not sturdy enough for dive bombing, which in the light of the Ju-87 Stuka seemed like a good way to improve accuracy, though later the Army dropped the dive bombing concept. The flaps on the A-20 were not effective enough, so its landing and takeoff distances were too long. Also, the new bomber had to be faster, as it was considered the A-20 will be too slow in a year or two. After receiving the list, the team at Douglas with the lead of Ed Heinemann set to work to create a new bomber meeting these expectations. Ed Heinemann was the original designer of the A-20, and he led the team which designed the SBD Dauntless dive bomber as well. I have already made a video on the Dauntless, so if you're interested in the history of that plane, I recommend you check it out. See the link in the description or at the end of this video. The design work on the new aircraft only took a few months, and in mid-1941 the Air Corps ordered 3 prototypes, each for different roles. The X-A-26 was built with a clear nose as a light attack bomber. The X-A-26A was supposed to be a night fighter version featuring a radar in the nose. And finally the X-A-26B in a ground attack role, mounting a 75mm cannon in the nose. The first flight was planned to be conducted in January 1942, but problems with the landing gear struts delayed the flight to July. The maiden flight went smoothly, and the flight performance was found to be excellent. Further delays were caused by other part shortages though. One of them were the self-sealing fuel tanks. The Army Air Corps also couldn't decide the armament on the B variant, so several different configurations were tested. Either mounting just the 75mm cannon, or mounting the 75mm cannon and 50 caliber machine guns, or mounting one or even 2 37mm cannons, or one 37mm cannon and 4 50 caliber machine guns. There was even a configuration mounting the 75mm cannon on one side and the 37mm one on the other. Basically, they wanted to try every configuration, and that added more delays in the production of the aircraft. In the end, the test showed that the cannons had too slow fire rate, and they were prone to jamming as well. So they were dropped and the solid nose A-26B was built, with 6 or 8 50 caliber machine guns in the nose. On later aircraft, additional 3 50 caliber machine guns were installed in each wing, raising the number of forward-firing machine guns to 14. Douglas expected to start delivering the new aircraft by the next year, around July 1943. But further problems delayed them, as the company couldn't secure manufacturing tools like the milling machines for the new production line. Though the first planes were delivered in September 1943, they didn't show up in significant numbers until mid-1944. The A-26 featured several modern design elements to meet the expectations. The wings used laminar flow design, the redesigned slotted flaps were more effective, the aircraft featured 2 remote-controlled turrets, and the new 2000 horsepower engines gave the bomber higher maximum speed than its predecessor. The A-26 was 50 feet long, with a wingspan of 70 feet. Its empty weight was just under 22,400 pounds, while the maximum takeoff weight was 35,000 pounds. It used 2 Pratt & Whitney engines producing 2,000 horsepower each. With these engines, the plane could reach a maximum speed of 358 miles an hour and a cruise speed of 266 miles an hour. It had a combat range of 700 miles and a service ceiling of 28,500 feet. The A-26 featured 6, or on later versions, 850 caliber machine guns in the nose, and on earlier models up to 850 caliber machine guns in gun pods under the wings, or later versions 650 caliber machine guns built in the wings. The defensive armament consisted of 2 remote-controlled turrets, each housing twin 50 caliber machine guns. The plane's maximum bomb load was 6,000 pounds, and it had the option of carry up to 10 rockets under the wings. The A-26 first saw combat in June 1944 on the Pacific, when 4 of them were tested in New Guinea, bombing Japanese installations. Though their performance was good, the overall feedback was poor, mainly citing that the cockpit was too low and positioned between the engine nacelles, so the visibility was very poor, making the aircraft outright dangerous to fly in formation at low levels. General George Kenney flat out refused the new aircraft in its early form to take as a replacement for anything. Douglas responded to the feedback, and the cockpit was changed to a different, higher one from the 820th aircraft. The A-26s arrived to the European theater in September 1944, joining the 9th Air Force. The first batch of 18 aircraft started flying missions soon after, and the feedback from here was better, as the new bombers were used at medium altitude, not at low level like on the Pacific. The new A-26 had more speed and longer range than the existing bombers, the B-26 or the A-20. Though after the positive feedback, orders were placed for 5,000 A-26 aircraft. After the German surrender, these were cut back, and the total number of A-26s delivered ended up just above 2,400. After World War II, the A-26 stayed in service, unlike other medium bombers used in the war. In 1948, when the Air Force abandoned the attack aircraft category, they were renamed to B-26, which sometimes results in confusion, as they got mixed up with the B-26 Marauders. They participated in the Korean War, and were amongst the first aircraft to see action there, flying from bases in Japan. They flew missions through 1950 from Japan, and in 1951 moved to new bases in South Korea. The A-26 was the last aircraft to fly bombing mission in the Korean War, just about 20 minutes before the armistice was signed in June 1953. They took part in the Vietnam War, flying from Laos, but after 2 accidents because of wing failure, the aircraft were withdrawn from service in 1964. 40 of them were upgraded to B-26K version, which included new stronger wings with wingtip fuel tanks, upgraded engines, propellers, and brakes. In 1966, for political reasons, they were renamed again to A-26, as the US wanted to deploy them in Thailand, but the country didn't allow bombers in, so they were sent again as attack aircraft. The last A-26 Invader retired from American service in 1972. The French Air Force also used the A-26 after World War II, and they participated in the First Indochina War. The A-26 is regarded by many as the best medium bomber of World War II, and it was the last propeller-driven twin-engine bomber of the US Air Force. It stayed in service for 25 years after the Second World War, and this tells us a lot about its qualities. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and in the comments let me know if there's any interesting events or vehicles you'd like to see.